What did you genuinely think was healthy but ended up being very much not healthy? Story 1. I worked in a natural foods grocery store where we didn't carry anything with high fructose corn syrup or even artificial coloring. In the wellness section, they sold a supplement called Meta Boost. We all assumed that this stuff had to have been healthy. It was like a miracle drug. I lost a ton of weight. It was better than coffee at waking you up. If you had a little too much to drink, one Meta Boost, boom, sober. Hungover, take a Meta Boost right as rain. Everyone in the store was taking it. It made the workday fly by. One day it disappeared. It was straight ephedrine and disappeared because it was a banned substance. Story 2. Constant consumption of self-help media. At first, it helped me tremendously, as it helped me recognize my flaws and more about myself. However, after some point, it became sort of an addiction. Always had something I needed to fix in me, and always nitpick my own behavior. Story 3. Everyone's health looks a bit different from each other, but for me, it was milk. Milk can be a good source of vitamins and can be a good way to bulk up protein shakes, but for a calorie deficit, it can be pretty bad, especially when you bring out my boy chocolate milk. Story 4, tamales. I'll preface this by saying I have the metabolism of a sloth. Went on a tamale kick thinking the corn was steamed with water. Didn't know about the lard. My friend from the southern states, I'm in Canada, sat on the sidelines wondering why I was doing this while trying to lean up. She finally clued me into what was happening. Edit, spelling. Story 5. I think I did it less than optimally, but being vegan. You can't just decide to stop eating animal-based products. You need to be so intentional about supplements. I was pregnant and still breastfeeding, and I couldn't get up. I ate a burger and immediately was fine. Story 6, juicing. I got a juicer, and I was buying bushels of apples, carrots, and other delicious fruits to juice, drinking a gallon of juice a day. The problem is that I was juicing fruits with a high sugar content, basically removing the nutrients like fiber and only consuming the sugar. It took me a few days to figure out what was keeping me in the bathroom. Story 7. Well, I've got friends that were big-time distance runners, and now their knees and backs are all lit up. I know several people who were serious road bike riders until they got into accidents or got hit by a car, and now if they're even alive, they're damaged, and many have traumatic brain injuries. Playing basketball, football, and various martial arts have lasting effects on your muscular skeleton, brain injuries, and the inclination to get into bar fights with strangers. Of course, if you do no exercise your whole life because you're afraid of getting hurt, that's also bad for you and will limit your ability to function when you're older. Story 8. Eating in a calorie deficit every single day plus intense exercise. Learned the hard way when my hair started falling out and my digestive system basically shut down. I thought I looked great and thin and therefore healthy. Nope, so glad to be recovered. Counting calories is a slippery slope. Story 9. Granola, at least the amount I was using. I was pretending to be healthy by eating Greek yogurt with berries and granola for breakfast. I didn't really pay attention to the nutrition facts of the granola. I just knew that it was healthy. After about a week of eating it for breakfast, I checked the label and was astounded at the amount of sugar and calories even 1 ounce could have. Story 10. Muffins. I happily ate them for years thinking the amount of sugar and fat was reasonable, but then I reread the nutrition label and realized that they were per serving, of which they counted the whole muffin as 2 servings. Similar to how they labeled 20-ounce sofa as having 100 calories per serving and stated the whole bottle was 2.5 servings. That sneaky dishonesty infuriates me. Story 11. Running half marathons. Got down to a weight on the higher side of normal, according to weight charts, but was told by everyone that knew me and doctors that it was definitely not a healthy weight for me, not to mention the wear and tear on my joints. Story 12. Clearly Canadian. Not me, but my mother. Back in the 90s, when this made its way into Price Club, now called Costco, she kept buying case after case because she thought it was just low-calorie seltzer water like Perrier. After months of gaining weight, she finally read the label and it had more sugar than Coke. Story 13, counting calories. It exacerbated a feeling of scarcity around having enough food or enough good-tasting food and made eating healthy more difficult. For example, it led to bad trade-offs like, I'm not going to eat this banana so I can have a fun-sized Snickers later. You end up always hungry, always thinking about food and never satisfied. Do not recommend. Story 14, keto paleo. It's supposed to be a reset, not a lifestyle. With keto, I'd be 3 months in and getting so lightheaded I'd almost pass out in the shower. I started becoming obsessed with how few calories I could consume per meal, and the worst part was the amount of sugar-free, fat-free foods I was consuming in order to keep my calories low. With paleo, I'd be making these half-taste, half-good baked goods and eating the entire amount because it's paleo-friendly, like almond butter chocolate bars or coconut flour, shredded coconut chocolate brownie cupcakes. Like the calories were outrageous and it didn't even taste good. I tried Noom in 2020 and realized how screwed up my perceptions of healthy foods were and how easy it was to eat normal foods and feel full and still maintain a healthy weight. Story 15. As a 90s child who grew up on the food pyramid stereotypical fruits. If you're like me, you were heavily taught in elementary school and health classes that you need to have a standalone fruit at every meal. And fruit means apple, banana, watermelon, etc. The stereotypical fruits. As an adult, I track my calories and macronutrients for health reasons. Major learnings from this. The healthiest fruits are the ones you don't consider fruits. Most things we think of as veggies are fruit. Fruits are a result of the plant reproduction process. Vegetables are straight up the plant. Things that are technically fruits: tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, squash, pumpkin, peas, corn. A true vegetable is when it is not part of the reproduction cycle, but instead the plant itself. Carrots, broccoli, potatoes, onions, celery, lettuce. The stereotypical fruits like bananas, apples, watermelon, cherries are high in sugar. So high that they have more sugar than some candies and chocolates. Obviously, it's healthier than candies/chocolates as they have fiber and vitamins. But still, the non-stereotypical fruits have all that fiber and vitamins with less sugar. Plus, when you understand what is a real fruit, you realize many of your home-cooked meals include fruits like tomatoes, peppers, peas, etc. already. So no, you don't need the 90s pyramid scheme of eating a standalone stereotypical fruit at meals. It's extra calories and extra sugar you probably don't really need, as you are already getting all the fruit nutrients from a properly home-cooked meal. Story 16. The idea the military gives you that you are mentally untouchable after becoming a civilian again, applicable to many other cases, gives you an illusion that you can't break before you understand who you are. You can only do that after living long. Story 17. Literally any ultra-processed food. They are often labeled as healthy or WE, but no matter what ultra-processes, foods are a cancer on society. If you can, stick to natural or mid-processed food. Actor natural, an apple processed. Those ready bags of baby carrots or florets of broccoli packed for convenience. Ultra-processed. Almost anything come from a bag box that's ready to eat. Frozen foods, cereal, chips, etc. Don't cut joy from your life, but try to stick to natural and processed foods as much as you can. Story 18. IMO, hating on processed food is not very helpful. Some kind of processing can make some food less healthy, but the term processed covers a very wide array of food preparation techniques. It doesn't really help anyone distinguish between the good kind and the bad kind of processing. Technically, any kind of cutting and cooking is processing food, but neither of them typically makes food less healthy. Veggies pre-chopped, blanched, washed, and frozen are technically going through a lot of processing, but they are just as healthy as fresh. And sometimes they're better because nutrients in many produces are usually preserved better when frozen than fresh. Pickling, fermenting, and jarring canning technically produces processed food, but you'll be hard-pressed to say that they're unhealthy. Adding salt, dairy cream, or fruit juices to food didn't really sound like much processing. They're just ingredients. But even if you do this at home, even at the bestest, making your own cream from your own cow and masking your own juice, if you add too much of either ingredient, they can absolutely make food just as unhealthy as those processed food. Story 19. I thought using the word genuine and genuinely in a sentence was normal and healthy. But now that it's peak trendy, it's not so healthy for my mental health to hear, see, or God's forbid, use myself. I get why it's popular because it's hard to detect sarcasm and trolling on this internet. Genuinely serious. Do you agree? Genuinely curious? Story 20. My parents were obsessed with the idea of olive oil being extremely healthy, and the more the better. Now, in moderation, it's certainly fine. But when I learned about calorie counting and found out it is very dense in calories, for example, 1 cup of olive oil contains approximately 1,900 calories. I started actually measuring cooking oil and only using the smallest amount possible, and I suspiciously lost weight extremely quickly, literally just from doing that. For reference, my parents would basically drown all food in it, like everything was dripping in olive oil. So we kids were raised on that food and thought that was normal. I'm convinced they wanted us all to be fat AF. But yeah, if you're trying to lose weight, mind the oil and follow serving size. Story 21, Kashi bars. I was in middle school and high school when they were coming out. I found out as an adult that the company had been around longer, but in the late 2000s/2010, they definitely seemed like a health food you could buy at the store. In reality, they just had become more accessible due to being bought by Kellogg, which I found out in college. Story 22, bread. As a fat little seventh grader, the food pyramid was my Bible. So I was eating like 8 pieces of bread and a serving, let's be real, 3, of rice or pasta and no protein, and then a Weight Watchers dessert or two and wondering why I wasn't looking like Brenda and Kelly. Like carbs are fine in moderation with other foods, not as your only food. Story 23, the wraps at Subway. My husband pointed out that the wrap itself actually has a higher calorie count, 300, than a regular Italian urban cheese bread, 240. The look of triumph on his face when he proclaimed his superior health choices and smugly enjoyed his sandwich. Story 24, extremely low-fat diets, and I'm not talking about the ones that replace fat with sugar. In my early 20s, I started doing Jenny Craig to lose weight. I was around 230, and my mom was constantly after me. I stuck to that diet like nobody's business. Didn't cheat, hit all the metrics, but my weight loss was still limited, and I was tired and freezing all the time. After 6 months of this, I visited a college friend and had my first dinner out at a Red Lobster. That night, I had a gallbladder attack with no idea what was going on. I suffered through it and chalked it up to, what the hell was that? The next day, I had a much worse one, causing my diaphragm to spasm, which made breathing difficult. My friend called 911, and I got a trip to the ER. Turns out, if you don't have any fat in your diet for 6 months, the bile your liver produces to digest fat just sits in your gallbladder. If it sits long enough, it makes stones, and the next time you eat fat, your gallbladder tries to push bile out and chokes on a gallstone. So at 22, I got to have a perfectly good organ removed because the government told everyone fat was bad. A company that knew better pushed a long-term, extremely low-fat diet at people who wanted to lose weight. And my mom was so fat-phobic, she saw the loss of an organ as an acceptable price for losing weight. Story 25. I used to think granola bars were the ultimate health snack. They were marketed as healthy, easy to grab on the go, and full of oats, nuts, and honey, so I thought they were great for a quick energy boost. Then I realized they're often packed with added sugars and processed ingredients, which basically made them a glorified candy bar with a better reputation. Now, I double-check labels or make my own at home. Lesson learned. Just because something looks healthy doesn't mean it is. Story 26. I never knew added sugar was an issue. Going sugar-free and only eating fruit for my sugar has made a huge impact on my health, mood, productivity, and happiness. I still, of course, have a treat now and then, but not every single day like I used to. Natural over processed all the way. Story 27. I remember in college, I wanted to start working out earnestly. And I remember emailing my health and PE teacher at the time, asking her for advice, and proudly proclaiming to her that I'd just eaten a plate full of fettuccine Alfredo that day. This was before I knew anything about macronutrients, blood sugar, etc. I remember just thinking it was a plate full of energy. She had a humorous response and started teaching me about carbs. Also, another answer, deli meats. Story 28. Being vegan for me was very unhealthy because I have a lot of food intolerance I didn't know about at the time, so I got really sick. Now I would have an incredibly limited diet if I was vegan. I also find I just have so much more energy when I eat meat, and yes, I've tried lots of supplements. Story 29. I'm going to say peanuts or most nuts. Now yes, they are healthy, but in moderation. They ate extremely calorie-dense, and some nuts can also have some other negatives if you eat too many. Not to say you shouldn't have them, but just because something is labeled as healthy doesn't mean it is if you have no clue of serving size or moderation. Story 30. Bodybuilding. My dad did a lot of bodybuilding competitions as I was growing up and is still jacked in his 60s, but he is now also in late-stage renal failure, likely in some part due to the bulking/cutting cycles, sodium loading before a show, and crazy supplementation. Not to mention, almost every bodybuilder I've known has had crippling insecurity, body dysmorphia, orthorexia, and generally do not seem very happy, especially during cutting cycles. Story 31. My last roommate. I had just broken up a toxic relationship and struck up a friendship with this girl through mutual friends. We bonded over what toxic relationships can do to one's sense of self, as she has also been in one in her past. She was always telling me how strong and kind and amazing she thought I was. She suggested being roommates as I was looking since the breakup. It started off great, and she constantly touted wisdom she'd learned when she studied psychology and therapy. I thought she was someone I could genuinely trust and a great friend considering what I was going through. After some time, I noticed she lied a lot. Things were broken or missing in the house, and she always had an excuse. I tried talking with her about our living situation, thinking she was a good friend and someone I could trust. But every time I mentioned something I didn't like, it was always that I was misunderstanding or being too uptight. Eventually, after lots of consideration and tears in my eyes, I suggested we no longer live together. From there, the mask dropped. She stopped interacting with me entirely. She told all her friends I was bipolar, accusing her of things that didn't happen, and that I was forcing her out in a matter of days. Luckily, some mutual friends saw through her and supported me, but it was a pretty horrible experience and really tainted my ability to trust people. Story 32. I used to think canola and vegetable oil weren't too bad as ingredients. I avoid anything with any kind of ultra-processed oil in it, or anything that comes in a package for that matter. Learning about seed oils and what they do to the body really tripped me up. So I only eat single-ingredient whole food now. I make literally everything myself. Basically, if I don't know where the ingredients came from, and I didn't make it, I don't eat it. If it's in a box or made in a warehouse lab, it's not meant for human consumption. Next theme, women of Reddit. What's the first thing you notice when you check out a guy? Story 1, how they behave around other people and maybe what their exes think about them. In high school, there was a guy all the other dudes made fun of and called Monkey Man because he was very short and very hairy and not traditionally good-looking in any sense. But all the girls loved him because he was genuinely kind without expecting anything in return, and his smile made his eyes crinkle. He had several girlfriends in high school who all still spoke highly of him after, which just made him more attractive to all the other girls. No one ever had a bad thing to say about him, apart from his bullies, and that was just stuff about his appearance. Story 2. The first thing is his confidence. It's not about being loud, just how comfortable he is with himself. Then I usually check out his smile. If it's genuine, that's a big plus. Smiles. Style matters too, LOL. I like when a guy has his own vibe, whether it's casual or not. Story 3. It depends on the guy. In one guy, I might notice eyes. On another, I might notice hair. There are many times I don't even find the guy physically attractive, but something he said or did was enough to catch my eye. There are so many factors to take into account when looking at potential partners that hyper-focusing on one detail and using that detail as the end-all basis of attraction is unreasonable and unrealistic. Story 4. If I see them from a distance, face, posture, musculature, in that order. Not that they need to be super muscular, but I'm not into the skinny fat type of bod. Need some definition in the pecs and the arms at least, and I love some good posture. If I'm meeting them, face, vibe, posture, musculature, in that order. But the vibe can trump everything else if it's really good. Story 5. I wonder how important cleanliness plus overall hygiene is important to women in relation to how attractive the man is visually or financially. Because any tall, attractive man with decent income can have bad hygiene, and he'll never be single. Just an inquiry. Story 6. Usually body type. But I've mostly always just been a personality type of girl. If someone is sweet, kind, has a good sense of humor, etc., and confidence is very why. I've always thought confidence could give appeal to someone who may generally be considered unattractive based on their looks alone. I'm 31 years old now and lost my vision completely when I was only 22, so it's a good thing I've always been a personality type of girl, LOL, because that's all I've got to go on nowadays. I kind of enjoy it though. It takes away the ability to be shallow, which I consider to be a good thing. Story 7, personally for me, it depends on the guy. Sometimes I see a guy with nice forearms and I look at them first, then the rest of him. Sometimes I happen to notice he has really nice eyes first, or I really like his hair. Maybe he has an outfit on that I like and think might look great on my boyfriend, LOL. Sometimes a great smile or their voice. Sometimes it's just noticing that they are doing something nice, like holding flowers or helping someone with something. I don't really actively check dudes out, but occasionally a feature pops out at me and I'm like, oh, that's nice. Then take in the rest because I'm already looking. Story 8. Honestly, it's the way he carries himself. Confidence without arrogance. There's something about a guy who's comfortable in his own skin, whether it's his posture, how he walks, or just the vibe he gives off. Of course, a nice smile and kind eyes help too, but that first impression of confidence and ease is always what catches my attention. Story 9. Eyes and smile. You can tell a lot about how genuine someone can be by watching where they look and what kind of facial expressions they like to use. Though this can be applied to anyone, I guess. The next thing would be what comes out of their mouth. I'd rather have deep discussions that we can connect over than receive flattering compliments. Or just don't comment on the way I look until we're officially going out. Story 10, if he's able to make eye contact. Then I try to establish if he is clean. I had to stop seeing a guy because he smelled terrible and would show up to our dates absolutely filthy from work. He clearly made zero effort. Even his hands were still covered in grease, and it was like he just didn't care, and as a result, didn't give a about me either. Story 11. Honestly, I tend to notice vibes and general impression of personality. Some people ooze confidence, others present as distrusting or hostile or hypervigilant. You can tell who draws everyone's focus, who's stiff or depressive or comfortable, whatever. I tend to gravitate towards the people who seem open and confident and social and notice what they look like after the fact. Story 12. Face. Stylish hair and then maybe beard. Unclean beard is as much a turnoff as shaved twink face or clean beard is a turn-on. If we're talking not physical, aura. I like people that are able to discuss things, people that are technicians or experts in a field at least. That carries over to other things. Story 13. When I was younger, gorgeous eyes. Now it's healthy, lovely eyes, keeping it tight as best as he can. Everything is a trade-off when you build a family, and that's the stinking point. Find a best friend, ladies. You can grow and evolve with shared values. It sounds sadly like young men smell especially bad these days, based on your posts. It's absolutely not your place to fix a stinky boy not cleaning himself, which seems like another fun generational issue about mothers. You guys can grow up together. Story 14. Putting aside the basics, hygiene, teeth, etc. I'm most attracted to a man's hands and forearms. A man with big hands and veiny forearms does it for me. They don't have to be muscular either, just nice big hands and veiny forearms. Bonus points for a shirt with the sleeves rolled up to just below the elbow. Story 15. See, guys have to look more than just smile, and color of eyes cause that's just about this only real part on a lady. I am wrong because she changes completely. It's interesting how much emphasis is placed on looks, isn't it? You meet a stunning woman and she seems to radiate confidence with that killer scent and flawless appearance. But let's be real, there's a transformation happening behind the scenes. Those French tips and that perfect makeup, it can feel like a whole production, like she's preparing for a Broadway show instead of just a night out. And don't even get me started on the extensions and the layers of makeup. It's like a magician's act. Now you see her, now you don't. One moment she's a total knockout, and the next, it feels like you're looking at someone completely different. It's a high-stakes game, and honestly, it's exhausting just watching it all unfold. When we guys show up, what you see is pretty much what you get. No smoke and mirrors. We might throw on a fresh shirt and some cologne, but there's no elaborate transformation involved. It's a wild contrast, right? Sure, we appreciate the effort, but it does make you wonder how much of it is real versus a carefully curated illusion. And let's face it, the pressure to keep up those appearances can be intense. The time spent getting ready could rival a military operation. It's all fun and games until it's time to peel off the layers and see what's underneath. So here's a shout out to the ladies who embrace their natural selves, because at the end of the day, authenticity is what truly shines. Next theme. What are some commonly recommended life hacks, which are actually wrong or bad? Story 1. Never go to bed angry at your loved ones. Emo, no. Take time to cool off and consider the other person's perspective. Even just giving it a few hours might change your attitude. A brand new day can make both parties more forgiving. I know I always start remembering what a great person my spouse is and realizing he'd never hurt me on purpose once I've stewed for a bit. Source, almost 30 years with the same person. Story 2. The advice I see on Reddit about asking for an itemized receipt is incomplete. Asking for an itemized receipt does not automatically drop the total cost. Instead, asking for an itemized receipt allows you to identify line items that don't make sense, don't apply to you, or weren't rendered. For instance, I was charged a materials delivery fee as part of a home renovation project, even though I transported all the materials to my home myself. Since the service was not rendered, I got that cost stricken from my total, but I had to first identify it manually and draw attention to it. It didn't just automatically go away when I asked for the itemized receipt. Story 3. I always see people on Reddit say that coworkers are not friends and to not develop friendships with them. Why? That's literally the worst advice I've seen parroted here. Like, don't be a degenerate in front of them, but developing friendly relationships with the people you see for a 1/4 of your life is normal and not problematic. Story 4. I saw one the other day that said, if you are lost in an unfamiliar location, needing rescue, and your battery is about to die, change your voicemail to include your approximate location. Then people who call will be able to determine where you are after listening to the voicemail. Things that are very wrong with this advice. Many people can go days without getting a phone call. If you don't answer the phone, most people probably won't listen to the voicemail greeting. What you should do if possible is send one of your contacts your approximate location. GPS coordinates work. And always call 911. Story 5. Multitasking makes you more productive. Actually, multitasking tends to make you worse at everything you're trying to do. You end up scattered, doing a mediocre job on each thing, instead of really focusing and excelling at one task. If you need to get stuff done, block out distractions and tackle things one at a time. Story 6. I used to sell mattresses and commonly had customers who believed that the harder their mattress, the better it was for them. Untrue. If you lay down and you're comfortable, then it's a good mattress. You don't need to sleep on a slab of stone for health benefits. Also, it's a pain, but turning your mattress every now and then is good for its long-term health. Story 7. The whole Freeze a wet sponge for an ice pack that won't drip is wrong on every level. If the sponge is saturated, it will absolutely drip as it melts. If it was only damp, it won't drip so much, but it also won't have much thermal mass and thus won't deliver much cold. Either way, it will be a stiff rectangle that won't conform to the body part you need chilled. So many things make much better ice packs, including the classic of ice cubes in a plastic bag. Story 8. Here are some commonly recommended life hacks that are actually bad. Multitasking for productivity lowers focus and efficiency. Fake it till you make it can lead to mistakes and stress. Waking up at 5 a.m. guarantees success. Productivity depends on managing energy, not just waking up early. Cutting sleep to get more done reduces cognitive function and harms health. Cold showers for motivation, not a magic fix for focus or energy. Story 9. Resetting your sleep schedule. By staying up 24 hours and sleeping early, at a decent time the following day, the window for you to fall asleep in this method is so small that it'll do more harm than good. The actual way to resetting your sleep schedule is much harder and a little more methodical. Story 10. That hole. Ask your doctor to put it in your chart and then they'll do whatever you want. I'm a doctor, just know. All the chart is for is a record of what we did to be billing insurance for in the appointment. If your request doesn't line up with your symptoms, we are well within our rights to deny it. And considering the chart isn't for negative diagnostic loops, we don't have to put that our patient asked for some unrelated medicine, test, or thing. That won't get you any resolution unless your doctor was already a people pleaser to begin with. Story 11. That all seat headrests in cars are detachable so you can break a window. Wrong. Not all cars have detachable headrests, and there are different types of glass used in cars, so you need to check which glass is actually breakable on your specific vehicle. My car has a manufacturer's stamp on the corner of every piece of glass labeling it. For modern cars, laminated glass is used for the windshield and typically the front windows as it is very strong. Tempered glass is used on the rear and is easier to break. Please don't be thinking you have an escape route should you need to break a window in an emergency and be left trying to break through your windshield with a headrest. Story 12. One that comes to mind is the classic put your phone in rice to fix water damage. It's often suggested, but it doesn't really help and can cause more problems. Also, the just drink more water advice for every ailment can be a bit much too. Story 13. Don't worry, the right person will come when you least expect them to. Just join a class, a new hobby, online dating site, etc. You're sure to meet the one someday. My poor flatmate has been waiting for 13 years, done everything possible, and followed advice from all sorts of people. She's bitter about not having the chance to have a child because she was waiting for the one. Now says she should have done it on her own. If only she listened to her intuition. Story 14. Don't study more than 6 hours a day. It's not productive after that. You just need to work smarter and not harder. Sorry, but I work smart and also need to put my head down for sometimes up to 12 hours a day, including 10 minutes breaks every hour because I want top grades. I love to immerse myself in my work, and being at my desk for around 12 hours can be extremely productive for me. Believe it or not, yes, you can still have incredible focus even at 10 hours in, so it's not a waste. Wish I listened to my advice sooner, and not the general study advice of don't go longer than 6 hours. It's bod, and you don't get anything efficiently done after that. You also won't remember anything after that. No, do whatever the FK you want and what is beneficial for you and your goals. Just make sure you stretch every hour, have meals at appropriate times, drink water consistently, quick chill exercise in the morning, and get plenty of sleep. That's it, and then you can do whatever amount of work that you want for the day. My big dream requires big effort. Story 15. Any food hack that wants you to get sugar boiling hot and then spin it with a whisk in the air to make strings, or says it'll turn into fairy floss or some such. You will burn yourself, and getting it off your skin is difficult because it's sugar, and they always aim it at GD teenagers. How to Cook That on YouTube has a lot of the food-related ones and explains why they're dangerous or don't work. Story 16. This might be a hot take, but I think the feel your feelings sentiment goes too far sometimes. Of course, it's so important to acknowledge how you feel and not judge yourself for having real valid emotions. That said, I think sitting with your feelings for too long can become harmful too. I had been allowing myself to cry and be sad about a breakup, but feeling better needs new experiences and not dwelling on the bad feelings too long. Story 17. People talk about the advice of cleaning as you cook, and while it's not a bad idea, I think it has some drawbacks. There are hot surfaces, and washing pans with water immediately when they're hot is bad. After eating, you still have to wash the plates, glasses, and utensils. I don't see many advantages compared to cleaning after eating, or if you have a dishwasher, it's much more convenient and uses less water. It's fine, cleaning while cooking has its advantages, but people talk about it as if it's a game changer and almost as if it's foolish to do it any other way, when there are several reasons not to. To each their own. Story 18. They can be bad in what people often do with them, even if the theory is good. For example, big batch meal prep can be bad for your health by reducing the variety of foods people consume, and by slightly increasing food hygiene risk, as meals are prepared, cooled, stored, and reheated. Done well, though, for many people it can actually increase the quality and variety of what they eat. It's all in the execution, not the theory. Story 34. Pay your mortgage off weekly instead of fortnightly monthly will mean you pay it off faster. Contextually, no you don't. The people who say this don't understand 4 weeks does not equal 1 month. You need to divide the mortgage repayment by 4 and pay that weekly, putting you 0.35 weeks ahead per month. It's no life hack, and the banks know how to do basic math. The correct term for this, making additional contributions to your mortgage. People love to muddle the two.